I spent every single last cent I earned. Parents saw that and they were not willing to fund any of that. But hi, welcome back to my channel, and I'm back again today with a money related video. And the reason is because I'm on my journey to saving up for a house in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and so I've been increasingly conscious of how I spend my money, and I realized that over the years I've actually learned a lot about managing money and adopting a healthy attitude with money. So I thought I'd share that journey with you guys today as someone that's part of Gen Z. Homeownership is something that I just never considered was a possibility, especially because my parents weren't in the position to help me with a huge deposit. So yeah, I always thought that goal was out of reach. But I guess over the last few years, I've accumulated a healthy savings balance to achieve that goal. Today's video will be touching on what really helped me accelerate my savings and the biggest sort of spend items or biggest expenses that I've cut from my life in the last few years. Cutting these expenses actually hasn't really had any notable impacts on my lifestyle or level of happiness. In fact, for a lot of these, I didn't even notice that I don't have it anymore in my life until I sat down to really think it through in this video. So without further ado, let's get started into the 10 items I no longer purchase. Actually, just for a bit of context before I get started, I used to be really bad at managing my money. I told you guys that I started working when I was 14, but as you would imagine, most 14-year-olds are not the best at managing their money. I used to work a minimum wage job at Subway, and I would earn I think $10 to $12 an hour, and I spent every single last cent I earned. And then when I started university, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. Essentially, that really helped me with my money situation because it meant that I had a lot of disposable income, but that also meant that I had an excuse to not really have a great budgeting system in place, and I was not really conscious of my spending habits until I started full-time work. And it wasn't until I started full-time work that I realized that I want to be financially free one day, and what that means for me is not being obliged to work a job that I dislike for the sake of money. And I realized that to achieve this goal, I couldn't keep spending on things that I guess weren't 100% necessary, or things that didn't really improve the overall happiness I felt in the long term. Okay, without further ado, let's get started into the 10 things I no longer spend money on. The first thing is new shoes. So hear me out. I don't know how frequently people replace their shoes, but when I was in high school and earning a minimum wage job, I used to get multiple pairs of new shoes every year for different occasions. I would have a new shoe every year for formal occasions, so a new pair of heels, and I would get new sneakers every year, and I'd get one new sporting sneaker, one new casual sneaker. Granted, my parents saw that and they were not willing to fund any of that, but I guess because they had no control over what I was earning, I sort of fell into the bad habit of just purchasing new shoes every year, even though my old shoes were perfectly fine. And I think over the years, I've generally as a person just stopped caring so much about fashion, and I guess footwear went with that lack of care as well. Nowadays, I don't really purchase new shoes unless it's absolutely necessary, as in the shoes are breaking, which I'm not sure if is the best approach, because I'm sure there's a middle ground between buying new shoes every year and then waiting till your shoes break to buy a new pair. But genuinely, I just don't have the time or energy to look at which shoes to buy, and it takes a lot of mental energy to go shopping and choose the perfect pair of shoes. I used to spend hours looking up reviews and YouTube videos for the perfect pair of expensive sneakers, and because I no longer do that, I also have all that research time back. Moving on, second thing, which is closely related that I no longer spend my money on, is new clothes. I used to buy new clothes every season. So winter would come and I'll think, okay, I'm kind of sick of my last year's winter wardrobe. I'm gonna buy a new piece, a new cardigan, a new coat. And eventually I got to a point, especially when I started full-time work, that, I realize I only gravitate towards a few select pieces of clothing every day, and actually having a lot of clothes makes it very unproductive for me in the morning because I have all this additional headspace that I need to dedicate towards picking an outfit, and this is such a first world problem, I know. So what I've done is I just haven't really bought new clothes over the past 2 years. I have bought a few secondhand pieces that are very high quality on Depop. It also means I don't really buy a lot of fast fashion anymore, and there's nothing super wrong with buying fast fashion if that's the only thing within your budget, but I would reconsider doing that if you can find a secondhand piece that's better quality and also, you know, better for the environment. The one exception to this is that I have gotten a few new pieces of gym wear because they just wear and tear so easily. If you guys are interested in how I stopped my habit towards buying clothes to feel better about myself, let me know, and I can make a video in the future about how I overcame this shopping habit. Back in the day when I was in university and I had a boring online course, I would literally open a new browser and start online shopping. There's one thing to keep in mind if you also have a bad shopping habit, is that ultimately no one cares but yourself. So you have to evaluate whether buying this new item of clothing will truly make you feel better in the long term versus the more, I guess, long-term financial goals you may have. On to the third thing I no longer buy. I feel like this is pretty common, but I no longer buy new electronics and gadgets as toys, and I only buy them as tools when absolutely necessary. For context, when I was younger, I was one of those kids who always had an Android phone because my parents couldn't afford to buy me an iPhone. So when I got my first iPhone, I was so obsessed with Apple. I was the biggest Apple fangirl and I just wanted to collect every single thing from Apple. When I started earning my money, I splurged so much on getting the latest Apple gear, and I think I would try to upgrade my phone almost every 2 years, which is so unnecessary considering how good phones have gotten. Now that I think back on it, it's probably better to actually not have a super fast phone because that way you spend less time on your phone. Every year, you know, the new iPhone comes out and the ads make it seem like it's such a stepwise improvement, but really when you use the phone, you adapt pretty fast to whatever improvements there are, and then over time you don't actually notice the speed or camera improvements. Another Apple product which I found to be an absolute waste of money personally was the Apple Watch. I'm not the biggest fitness buff, and when I do exercise I never remember to wear my watch anyways, and it's just such a pain to charge every day. Fourth thing I no longer buy is fake eyelashes. There was a period in my second year of uni, I think right after a university ball, I was obsessed with fake eyelashes. I think I discovered just how much of a huge difference they make to your appearance, in the sense that it would make me look super put together even when I was wearing no makeup. And over time, as I kept getting fake eyelashes once a month, I was just used to what I looked like with fake lashes, and then I just couldn't stop getting lashes. I think if I still had this habit of getting my lashes done to this day, it would have cost me thousands of dollars every year. Lashes in the city I live in are around $200 every month, and not only are they expensive, they're actually very damaging to your natural lashes. That sort of keeps you stuck in a cycle of constantly needing fake lashes to make up for the lashes that you're literally losing as a result of the fake lashes. Fifth item or items I no longer buy are books. Reading used to be my entire personality, hence I made this channel, a book channel in the beginning. And you can see I have all these books behind me, but I realized that libraries are a thing and you don't actually have to pay for the books there. You are indirectly paying for it with your own taxes. Of course, I'm all for supporting authors, but personally, just for me, it was getting sort of unsustainable to an extent where I had piles of books that I never got the chance to read. Whilst it does mean that I have a really nice and colourful library now, I ultimately don't think it's worth buying a book if you're not going to read it, and the library provides perfect opportunity for us to trial a book before we commit to buying it and supporting the author if we really like their work. Sixth thing I no longer buy is streaming services for entertainment. Now, my subscription spending is not the best. You can look at my monthly spending recap if you want to see how much I spend on software subscriptions. Hint, it's a lot of money. But I think most of the services I would use a bit more than, say, Netflix or Disney Plus. In the past, there were times when I had multiple streaming services. I would even forget that I had some of them as well, which is really bad. They've just gotten more and more expensive as time went on. I actually just much prefer spending money and going to the cinema, because going to the cinema sort of feels like an actual experience, and sometimes it's a social experience that I share with my friends, so it's sort of justified. Number 7 are meal boxes like HelloFresh. When I first started learning to cook, I relied on HelloFresh a lot because I had a busy schedule and I just didn't have the time to think through recipes and meal prep. I've realized that it's just not sustainable keeping up those meal subscriptions, and not having those sort of forces me to be more creative with the ingredients I have. That being said, I do see myself going back to meal boxes again when things get more hectic, just because they are a great time saver, and sometimes I'd rather spend more money to get the time back. So this is one of the instances where I may go back and re-spend on this again. Number 8 is skincare. Like most girls during lockdown, I went through a skincare phase. I would purchase 3 different moisturizers and toners, which is obviously unnecessary. You know, how many can you realistically use on your face every night? And yes, skincare does also expire, so you can't just store skincare indefinitely. I was also forced to give up my skincare because I travel a lot now for work, and when you travel and you have to fit everything into carry-on, you tend to not be able to bring like 3 different toners. So I've since moved away from the Korean 6-step skin routine. I just have a simple 2-step skin routine where I wash my face with a cleanser and then I moisturize my face, and that's it. I actually notice 0 difference to my skin quality. If anything, I think my skin actually feels a bit better nowadays, and my pores are smaller because they're less clogged. But it might also have to do with the fact that nowadays I'm a lot more conscious about my water intake, and water is the free thing that can actually drastically improve your skin quality. One thing that I will not stop spending money on though is sunscreen, and we're getting close to the end of the list, and this one is somewhat related to the previous item, and that is makeup. Nowadays, my makeup routine is very simple. Again, I was probably forced into this by my busy work schedule, but over time, as I've adjusted to how my face looks barefaced and with minimal makeup, I realized that a lot of my purchases were not super necessary in making me feel better. I personally don't see the value in having multiple different blushes or bronzers when in the end, when you apply it on your face, you can't really tell the difference. I guess it's a different story if makeup is a hobby of yours or you're a professional makeup artist. And last thing I no longer spend money on is magazine subscriptions. Back in the day when I was in business school, I paid for my own subscription to multiple business related magazines. I'm lucky enough that my local library actually has a great stock of magazines, so I can keep up with my news that way rather than splurging on multiple magazine subscriptions, which realistically I'm not going to have the time to read through all of them anyways. That being said though, I think I am a little less well informed than I used to be because I cancelled all my subscriptions, so there's nothing compelling me to stay on top of the news. I've yet to decide whether that's a good or bad thing. Those are the 10 items I no longer spend money on. Let me know if any of the items I mentioned on my list are items you spend money on or items you no longer spend money on, and why. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.